every single day since the end of the season and some during the season about Teddy Bridgewater.
Okay.
So Teddy Bridgewater, as you well know, Judd, this year was asked to fill in for Drew Brees. And when he went in, a lot of people thought, well, you know what? If he wins a game or two, that would be great. Let's see if his knee even holds up, if he can get out there. And not only did he do that, but much more. 5-0, the best career quarterback rating that Teddy Bridgewater has ever had, 9 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and he shredded apart a very good Chicago Bears defense to leave his last impression. So he didn't play super well in the first 2 games. He was still kind of getting his rhythm going and everything else. And then in the final 3 games that he started, Tampa Bay, Jacksonville, and Chicago, so defenses that are pretty good. Teddy Bridgewater, 7 touchdowns, 1 pick, 108 quarterback rating, only sacked 4 times in those games, and averaged 7.7 yards per attempt. Those are top-notch starting quarterback numbers in a small sample, of course. But the bigger sample on Bridgewater, as you've heard Alex Boone talk about, is that his reputation is that players want to play with him. Sean Payton told Mike Zimmer when they got Bridgewater, before this season, he told them that they had him in practice and all those things, and that he wants Bridgewater to be his future quarterback. But Teddy is a free agent. So if Drew Brees comes back, it's more likely than not that Teddy will be on the market. And what has been floated to me by no less than a dozen people, whether it's on Twitter or through email, is that the Vikings signed Teddy Bridgewater back to be the backup, but they give him a big contract, and then he takes over as the starter in 2021. And what I want to say about that topic is that I've gotten enough interest that we should discuss it. But it's not happening, and I'm sorry. Teddy Bridgewater wanted to be the Minnesota Vikings franchise quarterback after he came back from his injury.
Okay.
The Vikings looked at studies of how players who have had this injury have recovered and whether they've ever gone on to succeed. And there was something like only a 25% chance that he would become the player that he once was. That is what they told Mike Zimmer, who loves Teddy Bridgewater more than you love anyone. And Zimmer said, okay, we'll move on. And everybody agreed, we'll go with Kirk Cousins and not Teddy Bridgewater. However, Teddy Bridgewater, not a fan of that. Teddy Bridgewater did not say, oh, the knee study. Okay, good. Well, you guys do you. He said, I'm sure, I'm going to show you.
Yes.
And I think that him coming back and going 5-0 was a little bit of that. Like, look at this. Look at the knee now. Look at how much work I put into it. Look that I'm still a franchise quarterback.
I think both parties in what you're describing were being very fair.
Oh, definitely.
Like the Vikings did the right thing. And I would actually accuse the Vikings of too often being fiercely loyal to players and coming back and saying, I'm not sure that that was the right move. So I would say the Vikings made the right move. But in Teddy's case, you can't blame him one bit. He's going to say that.
At the time, I was for rolling the dice on Teddy and also drafting someone else like Lamar Jackson, or even trading for somebody else who could be your quarterback just in case, or keeping Case Keenum. That was the direction I probably would have picked out of all of them, was to keep Bridgewater because, A, of his relationship with Mike Zimmer. I felt like if you're ever going to win anything, you have to have the quarterback and the coach on the same page. And after I read Bruce Arians' book last year, I felt even stronger about that if your quarterback and your head coach are separate entities, it's going to make it pretty tough. And that is what we have here.
And now poor Bruce is Jameis Winston, but I digress.
Well, he won't for long, I think, after what he saw from Jameis Winston this year. And in my mind, if you're Teddy Bridgewater, you're pointing out the Indianapolis Colts and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as 2 franchises where you should be wanting them to sign you.
Absolutely.
There is almost no chance that Teddy Bridgewater is a backup quarterback anywhere next year after the way he played. Those final 3 games, he wasn't just okay. He was fantastic against Tampa Bay. And that's the thing, too. Beat Tampa Bay right in front of them, gave them a little look-see. And then even the game that was close against Jacksonville, he was still good. A high completion percentage, 240 yards passing. And the Chicago game was really his. And this is what you could have. He looked better in the Chicago game than he did a lot in 2015.
But the best point is this one. Teddy is not, I don't care if he decided, you know what? I love the Vikings. I love Zim. You know what? all is forgiven. There is no way that with the clock ticking on his career, he can again say, but I'll sit again. He has to start next year.
Yes.
And
yes.
I don't know if he can play 16 games. Perhaps he can. Perhaps he can win a Super Bowl. I don't know. But he can't, for his sake, say, Minnesota, great memories, great coach. I'm going to sit behind Kirk.
No chance.
And the Vikings can't, unless I'm completely wrong here, the Vikings can't afford to even get close with Kirk under contract to what Teddy should and will get.
That's correct.
So
also,
it doesn't work.
Even the deal that Bridgewater had to be the backup for New Orleans would not make sense for the Minnesota Vikings right now because they have negative cap space. And sure, you can move this guy and this guy and this guy, but my question would be, who's playing corner? Like, you don't have any.
Yes.
How are you signing Anthony Harris to stay back here? How are you signing a nickel corner, 2 outside corners, more likely than not? Potentially an edge rusher. How about a defensive tackle? You needed one of those. So they have so many needs and a left guard on this team that it would be impossible to spend a lot on a backup quarterback. It's more likely than not that Sean Mannion will be your backup quarterback next year. And then if you draft someone, you'd have the 3 of them. Or maybe your draft pick ends up being the backup on a rookie salary.
Mm-hmm.
Even then, if you draft a rookie quarterback in the first round, that's a huge salary to take on for a backup quarterback. And they might not do it just because of that, because they need to fill out the rest of the roster. And you know that Mike and Rick still want to win in 2020. So the Teddy Bridgewater idea, well, I appreciate how hard people are trying for it. And all these people see Bridgewater the same way that I do. They see him as somebody who had an extra special gene to lead people and to win games. And even when his statistics are not the best or when things aren't going particularly well, he can find a way. And if you're talking about placing Bridgewater in the same circumstances against San Francisco as Kirk Cousins, you have much more belief that Bridgewater would find a way out of it. That doesn't mean he wins everything, but the guy is 22-12 as a starter. And in his second year as a starter, took his team to the playoffs and led a game-winning drive that should have been a 27-yard field goal. And then comes right back and has 2 game-winning drives in 5 starts for the New Orleans Saints. Like, just typical Teddy Bridgewater stuff. His mobility, his accuracy, his ability to get more out of everyone than is there. All these things everyone knows about now. Everyone has seen. And I'm sure that there will be several teams making phone calls and big offers
for him to start.
Teddy Bridgewater.
For him to start, to step in day one.
Right. So he would never accept the backup job, even if it's for one more year.
Nor should he.
If Indy calls you and Tampa Bay calls
What's his
you
age
and the
now?
Chargers call, he's only 27. So
he's 27. But still, yeah, you're not going to say, yeah, I'll sit again. No, and he
actually
shouldn't.
just turned 27, 68.
There were how many starting quarterbacks in the National Football League in 2019 who, if you could have worked it to get Teddy starting instead of them, he would have?
Let's see.
It had to be
quite a few.
It had to be what?
I mean,
8 to 10? 8 at least?
At least a third of the league, because Indianapolis absolutely would have rather have had Teddy than Jacoby Brissett. There's no question that they would not have wanted in Tampa 30 interceptions. The Carolina Panthers could be in the playoffs with Teddy Bridgewater instead of Kyle Allen. He was really bad.
Yep.
Miami. I bet even John Gruden in Oakland would have liked him more than Derek Carr. Certainly Denver would have liked him more than Joe Flacco.
What about your guy in
Absolutely Joe Flacco. Absolutely Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Absolutely Jacksonville. They're probably a playoff contender with Teddy Bridgewater. Their quarterback play was horrible. Even with Gardner Minshew, it was sort of a short-lived, oh, look at that. Oh, no. Never mind. Cleveland would have been in the playoffs or in playoff contention. Baker was not good at all this year. So there's a lot of teams that would have looked at their quarterback situation and seen Teddy as an improvement or someone who could have made them at least a 500 team. And they'll remember that. What everyone would have wanted to see to make Teddy your starter is him go 5-0 filling in for Drew Brees. And after they got to see that, there will be teams who are sold on this idea. Even if they draft someone too, Teddy is going to be their starter somewhere for some team, and he's not going to come back to Minnesota. And not only that, but my feeling on Bridgewater is that he would never say it because he knows how loved he is in Minnesota.
Sure.
He would never come out and say, I felt like I was mistreated. But remember, they tried to toll the contract.
Yeah, that shocked me. That one shocked me.
they tried hard to toll the contract.
Yeah, and he was
to
ticked
keep
off,
him
and
there.
he should have been ticked off.
So I think that there is really no relationship anymore between the Vikings and Teddy Bridgewater. Nothing, especially that would make him go, oh, I could be the starter for Tampa and have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, or I can go be the backup in Minnesota. It's just not.
And by the way,
happen.
I'm from Florida too, so I'm
Right.
closer to home.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. This just occurred to me, and it might be an absolutely crazy question, but it might not be. If Teddy Bridgewater is the starter for the 2019 Los Angeles Rams, are they in the playoffs?
Yes. I think they are.
I mean, Jared Goff.
They were that close.
Jared Goff underwhelmed
and the Vikings
us, right?
not.
Jared Goff underwhelmed us for quite a bit of this season.
Okay, I've got another question that's the similar. If he's the starting quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings in 2019, are they a 2 seed? Who did they beat that Teddy would not have beaten? And
the answer to that question is nobody.
Nobody. And the Packers game they win. Teddy doesn't throw that pick.
Okay.
The Chicago game they might have lost because the offensive line got killed so much.
I'll give you this. I will give them 2 victories that they didn't get. I'll give you. Let's say they split with the Packers. Okay.
Yeah.
Just because if you sweep the Packers, that's a lot. Let's say they split with the Packers. So let's say they win in week 2. Okay. Let's also say that they win in Kansas City. I think they win.
Kansas City they win. Yeah.
I think with a real mentally strong quarterback, you win in Kansas City or Seattle. Probably not both. I'll give you 2 more wins.
The game-winning drive in Seattle. I mean, that's